are bright and shiny in my mind. You got me loving, hating, crazy indecision in my mind.
Welcome to the Fall Podcast, where the focus is on deer hunting, tips, tricks, tactics, and stories from across the Midwest. And now, here is your host, Aaron Blasey.
Welcome to the Fall Podcast. I am your host, Aaron Blasey, and this is episode number 57. And today, we're going to do the intro coming into this interview we have with Ryan from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan here. But I want to dive into a little bit of updates on what you and I have been doing. We haven't done it in a little while, and you've had a huge week this last week. You and Cooper.
Yes.
Intern on the couch. A couple episodes ago we had Cooper on. He's the intern on the couch. So you guys had a huge week during turkey season, which is just making me even more jealous because our turkey season hasn't started yet, and you guys have two birds on the ground. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you. Give us a little version of what just happened the last couple days.
Yeah, it's been a great week so far. Turkey season started for us here on Monday. And I bought 2 archery tags. So in Iowa, you're allowed to get 2 tags for the whole season. You can get them both for archery equipment, or you can get one for archery and one for a gun. But you cannot do both gun. I think is the way it goes. I could be mistaken. It was kind of confusing. I just said, give me the 2 for archery. But so anyway, I have 2 tags. And I actually was able to fill one Monday morning. I got a turkey by, I think, 9:30 it was. Made a setup on this farm based on some pictures that I had. Actually, my boss got because it was on his place, and he said, "Why don't you go grab this camera for me? It's been out since October. I don't really know, what's on it. No one's seen it." I mean, I was like, "Sure, yeah. Camera been soaking since October. First time looking at it. I'll go get it." But yeah, anyway, just, made a setup there, and they skirted us right off the roost. And, we just we made an adjustment and tried to get out ahead of, try to get out ahead of them. And, we just got to the right spot. And, Cooper was there with me, like you said, and filmed everything for me. And actually another buddy of ours came from Illinois, and he was running some high-speed stuff outside the blind for me, and just kind of hanging out. It was just that classic turkey hunt with your buddies, kind of a feel, and just an awesome way to start the season. And I'm just excited to do it again. I got one more tag, and like I said, archery tag, so you can't beat it.
I'm jealous, man. I'm jealous.
Yeah, it was crazy. He attacked a full strut decoy at 12 yards, and Cooper got it in 120, and then Max was outside the blind with an FS5 and a 70-200, and he got it in 240 on 8-second burst. So it was took some communicating, but it was perfectly executed. Everything's perfectly in focus, and if anyone's interested to see it, it's on an episode of Cabela's Turkey Roost, which is available on YouTube on the Cabela's Hunting channel.
Yeah, go check that out. The footage is awesome. So it's a cool little hunt, little digital series that Justin's doing. So go check that out. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, you could have 2 birds down before I even get an opportunity at 1. So I'm pretty jealous.
Yeah, it's possible.
But last week, we like Chris and Casey and Lee and JB and like all of our buddies. So there's probably, I'm going to say 20 of us. We, for the last 4 or 5 years have turkey hunted in Michigan all together. We'll pick out teams, we'll film it all, and we'll just kind of try to kill as many birds as we can. We only can kill 1 here in Michigan, so we have what we call our permissions party. So we have it at JB's house, and we all go over there and drink some beers and eat some food and everything. We grill out, and that's the night where everybody writes it down on the big board. We have this big board that we write down where we have permission for, like who's got permission, where it's at, how many acres it is. And it's safe to say that we have roughly 15,000 to 20,000 acres to turkey hunt here in Michigan amongst us all.
Jeez.
So, and it's all in the greater central Michigan area. So it's pretty cool. So we we picked teams, and actually this year was our first year I say we, but JB and Derek Fillmore, another one of our good buddies, they're like the head of the Gobbler Club, where we named it and everything. It's called the 989 Gobbler Club, So, but they came up and built a trophy, and it looks a lot like, kind of like a Stanley Cup in a way, but it's made out of wood, and they took a head off a decoy and drilled it on it, and then they put the fan feathers on the top of it, and it's got engraved like the founding members, and it's got the whole message, like the Gobbler Club message on it and everything. So, and it's got a spur chain. So, and it's called the Fallujah Cup. And I can't really get into why it's called the Fallujah Cup, because it's like Fight Club. You just can't talk about it. So, anyway, so we talk about this, or we get this Fallujah Cup, and we get all the rules and everything out. We got teams picked for this year, and we're actually doing it like bracket style for like March Madness. So it'll be pretty cool to keep everybody up to date and like on the podcast and how everybody's doing and everything. So that's going to be starting here coming up soon. And the spur chain, so all the birds that get killed, and if somebody mounts them, that's one thing. But if nobody mounts them, all the spurs get cut off and put on this chain, and it's kind of like your green jacket for the Masters, or for golf. It's like the winner of the spur chain gets to keep that forever from that year. So it's kind of like, it's pretty cool. It kind of gives you more incentive and more like bragging rights and stuff like that, and it's just kind of cool to keep the Michigan tradition and Michigan turkey hunting anyway alive. So that's other than that, I mean, I don't really have much else going on. Working hard on Rival Wild right now, trying to get these shows out, and actually went and walked a piece of property last night with a coworker of mine. We're kind of getting a plan around to do some hinge cutting here, real quick, and we're going to put some spring plots in for deer hunting, and so that's pretty cool. It's a 10-acre spot. It's kind of like an urban area, just in the fact of how many houses around there, but it's back in the woods, and it's not like it is kind of urban, I guess. You can see 3 houses from each stand. So, but it should be pretty interesting. So,
nice.
Yeah, just waiting for turkey season to get here.
Man, that sounds awesome. And I mean, I don't want to say this to say I'm moving on. I'm still excited to get out and keep turkey hunting, but I'm counting down until May 26th to Memorial Day, because I'm going on a public land bear hunt in Montana.
I can't wait to hear about it too. I'm jealous about that.
I got that same guy that was filming from Illinois. He's going with me out there to film it for me. So, I can't give too much of it away, but the intent for this footage is for a Badlands Film Festival submission at the 2019 ATA show. That's all I'm going to say about it. Yeah, it's going to be sweet.
I can't wait. One of these times next week or something, one of these, we're kind of getting lengthy on this intro, but I want to break down your equipment and what you're going to take for that, as far as filming gear and,
oh boy. Right.
And just gear in general, weapons, packs, all that stuff. I really want to break that down.
Okay.
So, well,
yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
We're kind of getting up on time on this intro. I want to get over this interview with Ryan. So, I guess with that being said, don't forget still America's Best Bowstrings. Want to throw this out there. Fall podcast code is still live. Please go and order some strings from America's Best. Try them out for yourself. They're awesome strings. Type in fall podcast at checkout to get your $10 off. Strings, $99 and over, and they're awesome. I just rebuilt my wife's bow last night with a new set on them, and I got it. I literally 4 shots and it's paper tuned, and there's no peep rotation. It's crazy. So
nice.
And I'm not that great at working on bows, so I had to have some help somewhere. So
sweet. And
I think you had one update as well, right? So I want to get to that before we do kick it to this interview with Ryan. So take it from there.
Yep. Nothing groundbreaking, but I just wanted to put the word out. An outfitter buddy of mine up in Saskatchewan runs an outfit called Big Iron Outfitting, and he had a last-minute cancellation on a spring bear hunt He texted me yesterday because I told him to make me the first call if anybody backed out, and unfortunately we've got a wedding to go to that overlaps the time frame that's available. But somebody backed out who had a deposit in on a spring bear hunt. It's any weapon, bow, rifle, shotgun, muzzleloader, crossbow. The only thing you cannot take is a handgun. He told me yesterday that he's selling the spot for $2,500. It includes airport pickup, licensing, meals, guides, lodging, and this guy they're all baited and monitored stands. He's got pictures, like relative current pictures, and it also includes trophy prep for any kind of mount or rug you might want to do. I've been to this guy's place 4 times, and it's by far one of my most favorite places on earth. It's just an awesome old trapper's camp on the river, on the Torch River, and it's about 4 hours north of Saskatoon. He's got Wi-Fi. He's got hot water shower. It is an outhouse, but wood heat in the cabins. He's got 3 cabins there. Just a really, really solid operation. Lots of big bears. You're gonna have a great time. Remote experience with the convenience of internet and hot water. So if it's something that's on your mind, look him up on Facebook, Big Iron Outfitting, or just shoot us a message on the Fall Podcast, and I can answer any questions or direct you to more of his information.
Cool. Did you say how many days that hunt was?
It starts, so his hunts run Sunday. I think they're Sunday to Monday or Sunday to Saturday, I'm sorry. That way he just stays in Saskatoon on Saturday night to pick up the next group on a Sunday. So this one runs from Sunday, May 19th to Saturday, May 26th. So you would be picked up on the 19th and dropped off on the 26th in Saskatoon.
Awesome.
So, yeah, check
Sweet.
them out.
Spring bear hunts are fun, so if anybody wants to do that, like Justin said, reach out to us at the Fall Podcast or go right to, their Facebook and shoot them a line. So
yep, Big Iron Outfitting.
Big Iron Outfitting. Well, that is, I think, the last thing we got. I don't think you have anything more, right?
Nope, that's it. Let's get to this interview with Ryan.
All right, on the phone with us today is, I think, our first Youper. I think he's our first Youper, our Upper Peninsula guy, Ryan Peroceschi. And Ryan, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys having me on here.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad we could hook up. I kind of reached out to you a while ago, and we just couldn't get our schedules lined up, and it's difficult to do that with our your schedule and my schedule, and finally we were able to get some time on here, and you and me and Justin are together, and I'd really like to dive into the Upper Peninsula hunting because it's something that I've never done, and it's vastly different from here in the Lower Peninsula or anywhere on the the Midwest. So, but before we get too far into that, I just kind of want you to introduce yourself to everybody that doesn't know you. So, could you kind of just tee up yourself and who you are, where you're from, and what do you do for a living?
Yeah, no problem. I'm not sure I have the resume to be on a podcast, but I certainly appreciate the opportunity. My name's Ryan Peroceschi. I live in Norway, Michigan. It's a small town in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, kind of, I guess you'd call it southwest Upper Peninsula, right along the Michigan-Wisconsin border. I'm 29 years old. I think I've been bow hunting since I've been 12, and really just enjoying the outdoors and the UP my whole life. I'm a certified athletic trainer. I work at a physical therapy clinic in Kingsford, and I provide sports medicine coverage for a local high school. So, as you can imagine, fall usually means hunting and football season, right? So it can be pretty tough to find the tree stand during the week, so I'm kind of a weekend warrior when it comes to hunting. I work pretty long days, they're 9-hour days, not including the after school sports, Friday night and Thursday night football games. I am lucky enough to have one half day off a week. So that half day happens to be Wednesday. So it works really good with my hunting schedule. I can kind of hunt Saturday and Sunday, and then I get Wednesday to hunt also. So, I can hunt for a day, take 2 off, kind of let the stand cool down, and then get back in the next 2 days. So That's kind of how I get it done in the fall.
That's pretty cool. You and I briefly talked about it on our pre-call. I have my family has a deer camp up in Rapid River, so it's, right down the road from you, which is pretty unique. I haven't been up there in years, and it was one of those things for my dad and my uncles to go up there and get away and have an excuse to go drink some beer and claim that they're hunting, which I never know if they really were, but they did come home with some deer every once in a while. But that's about the extent of it. And I really want to go up there sometime and be able to hunt it. But I'm interested in learning a little bit about what the UP has to offer for hunting and what type of hunting it is, because down here in the Lower Peninsula, there's you can get in some big timber for sure, but there's a lot of ag up here. Up in the UP, it's pretty dense, a lot of forest, a lot of clear cuts, and a lot of bears, a lot of wolves, and we don't really contend much with that down where I'm at. I mean, the bears are starting to move in a little bit, but I'm just interested about the Upper Peninsula hunting. So, I mean, if you could start, I know you've never probably hunted in the Lower Peninsula, but kind of give me what it's like to hunt up there in that dense forest and all the public land that you hunt.
Yeah, definitely. It really is dense. And, one thing about having that remote forest, the Upper Peninsula is not, I guess you could say, I was surprised when you called. I was nervous about even having enough service on the cell phone to take the call. You know what I mean? So when it comes to scouting and things like that, like as technology gets, better and improves, you can have your OnX app and your Google Maps and things like that, but it's the pictures that you're zooming up on are not well displayed. You don't really know what you're getting into because the trees and everything are so thick, so that's what's kind of exciting about hunting in the UP and hunting the public ground, especially the stuff that I'm on, is you don't really know what you're getting until you get here. You don't know what's over the next hill. You don't know what's around the corner. It's just a matter of, getting out there. And that's kind of why I like it. It's a little bit of an adventure. You don't know what kind of animals are out there, like you talked about. And, you don't really know what you're going to be hunting.
Right. So, getting boots on the ground is probably pretty crucial in your aspect to go out there and scout. I mean, you can't just really, like you said, throw up on X or Google Earth and be like, well, I'm going to go in here. I'm pretty sure there's like a saddle here. I'm going to go check that out. I mean, I'm sure you could do a little bit of that, but boots on the ground is probably one of the biggest things that you could probably do, I think, what I'm gathering from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as like the animals go, you're kind of asking about, what would be the difference between Upper Peninsula deer and Lower Peninsula deer elsewhere south of here. I guess I would say the caliber of deer. You can get a nice buck, but they're a little bit more few and far between. I think because hunting up here is such a popular thing, and it's such a big family tradition. You talked about your camp a little bit east of here. Guys get together in November and they spend time in the woods together. And a lot of times they're not really picky on what a deer has on its head. A lot of times it's just about putting meat in the freezer for them. And, that leads to, unfortunately that leads to some bucks that aren't fully mature. And, we do the best with what we got, but it's not always the things the bucks you see on social media or, on the hunting channel. That's for sure.
Yeah. And Justin grew up in upstate New York. And Justin, where you grew up and hunted up there, was that kind of like the UP of Michigan? I don't know, have you ever been up in the UP?
No, I don't believe I have. I would suspect it's very similar to the far northern part of New York State, and like in the Adirondack Park, probably a lot of kind of like that boreal forest type of terrain and those species of trees, lots of running hardwoods with evergreen patches, that seem to never end. I'm just guessing here, but just big woods, big mountains, big timber.
And that's what it is up there. I mean,
definitely, yeah.
The times that I've been up there, like I said, I haven't been up there in quite a few years, but you could walk for 3 days and, I mean, you're eventually going to hit water, of course, because we have water all over, but, you could walk forever and you could get lost really easy in some of those woods. Ryan, so kind of give me the caliber of bucks that you guys are really honing in on and what you're looking for. And, you mentioned that they're few far in between. Like, what bucks are you kind of talking about?
I guess the deer I'm talking about is anything older than 3.5 years old. You know, a 3.5-year-old buck around here is a pretty nice deer. So often, guys will shoot deer just because of the number of points on their head. You know, so a lot of times we lose deer at 2.5. You know, you lose a 2.5-year-old 8-pointer. So, you know, as I've gotten a little bit older, as I've, you know, been able to spend more time in the woods, you know, I'm looking for something older than 3.5. Like I said, it doesn't always work out that way. I was kind of telling you my rule the other day when we talked on the phone. It's like, if I get a deer in front of me and it gets my heart going, that's good enough for me a lot of times. But yeah, you always try to push for 3.5 or older.
Okay. So, you know, in a given year, you know, I'm guessing you run cameras. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
So in a given year, I mean, even on cameras or sightings in the stand, how many of those bucks are you seeing, you know, on average a year throughout the season?
On average a year, I'd say we get 1 to 2 really nice bucks that you really set your sights on. A lot of times, I don't know how it is down by you guys. A lot of times we get them in velvet and then they vanish. And then you sometimes get lucky and they show up in that first week in November. And, you know, lately between my dad and I, we've both been pretty lucky. You know, probably 2016, 17, and 18, getting those bucks that we got on camera earlier in the year. But it doesn't always work out that way. We've had a lot go missing once that velvet falls off.
Yeah, and I mean that's the same way it is here and anywhere. I mean, Justin lives in Iowa now, and it's kind of the same thing for him. I just think that's something about that velvet. When it comes off, it's like, well, time to go into hiding, you know, and their patterns change,
yeah.
and the food starts changing as well, right? So,
yeah,
you know, their food is more in the cover, and they just know it's something, and you know they're gearing up for the rut too, you know, and that's what they're meant to be doing, and they're starting to get those hormones going, and you know, so they're starting to get a little territorial with all the, because you know they're on bachelor groups usually, and they're just breaking up. So
exactly.
yeah, I mean, that's the same way down here, really. This year, I was fortunate to have a couple stick around and see a couple during the season. But, I mean, next year, I might not even have one 3-year-old to be able to hunt. So that's the give and take. You never know. So, you
Definitely.
know, there is one thing I do want to touch on. You know, the CWD thing going on here in Michigan and the Lower Peninsula, you know, axing baiting all together and minerals and everything like that. But actually up by you guys can still bait, right?
Correct. That's correct.
So I'm guessing that's probably pulling a lot of even out-of-staters, like, because you're really close to Wisconsin. You know, you probably got Lower Peninsula guys, you know, the older school guys that still like to do the bait thing, probably traveling up there. So I'm going to guess, you know, around November and around November 15th for sure, you're probably getting a lot of guys coming up there just because they can put a pile of corn or beets out and hunt over it. Is that right?
No doubt. Yeah. This year especially, So we basically hunt in Menominee County. My uncle owns a camp. He only owns 40 acres there, you know, and that's kind of, he's been really great about, you know, making that kind of the family camp and making kind of that the headquarters for us, you know, and he's been great to us and always let my dad and I use it as our own. And we basically use that property to rifle hunt. And this year, especially, we had a situation where the Michigan DNR came in and cut all the state land surrounding the camp, roughly 200 acres. And like you said, with that baiting law, we had guys from all over the place behind that camp property. I'm telling you, I think I took a walk down there on opening day and it looked like a pumpkin patch. It was just blaze orange every direction you looked. So yeah, definitely that no baiting to the southwest of us and below the bridge. It's definitely increased the pressure up by us this year, especially.
Yeah, and that's something I never would have really thought of, you know, guys traveling to do that because, you know, you can still bait up there. And a lot of guys, I mean, that's how they hunt, and that's what they like, and to each their own, you know, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, a lot of guys don't have the time to scout all year and put as many hours in the tree stand, so that they look at it as their weekend away with the guys, and you know, they say, all right, I'm going up to the UP and basically bringing my bag of corn with me and sitting over it for the long weekend, and they're just looking to fill the freezer, you know, and like you said, that's okay, but It definitely makes things a little bit more difficult.
For sure. Yeah. And you mentioned the 40 acres. Do you guys do any hunting on that 40 acres that camps on?
Yeah, my uncle hunts it, and I rifle hunt it. My dad really has always stuck to the state land. I kind of, when I started hunting as a kid, he was nice enough to give that spot up to me because he didn't want me getting too far away from camp. So I kind of inherited that spot, but I only use it for rifle hunting. I don't do any bow hunting on that property.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if I could go on state land during rifle season. You couldn't get me out there. You couldn't pay me enough to do it.
Yeah, it can be frustrating. Even that first week of November, when the rut's really heating up and you're kind of looking forward to that public land bow stand getting hot, that's prime time for us. And so many times you see these guys moving in and they're trying to look for a spot to rifle hunt and they're getting it ready. I've had several times on public land where I'll be sitting there thinking a big buck's coming through the woods when it's really a guy just doing his scouting for November 15th. And, that's okay because it's public land. That's all part of it. But yeah, just one of those other challenges of it. And like you said, it always seems to be bad timing.
Yeah. So, you come into the state land, and the big thing right now is like on public land or even private land, but a big public land push right now, and it's mobile hunting and the run and gun guys. Now, Is that what you and your dad are doing? Are you going in with a stand on your back and taking it in and out every time you go in, or are you doing the set stand thing?
No, we're doing the set stand thing. We do a lot of scouting throughout the year. Even this time of year, I was looking forward to getting out there this weekend because the snow up here is finally starting to melt. And a lot of times you can see some pretty good deer sign left over from last year. There's some ground scrapes still intact. A lot of buck rubs on the trees. This is really when we start doing most of our scouting. Unfortunately, we got a big snowstorm today, and that won't be happening this weekend. But we're always in the woods on that state property. And the other disadvantage of hunting the state land is you actually can't get a stand up until September 1st. And
really?
Even though there is that baiting law saying that you can bait, you still cannot put out any minerals until September 15th. So even though you can bait, being on the state land, being on that state property, you got to play by the rules. And September 15th and September 1st that's pretty short notice to get your stand. So we always get a spot picked out early enough. So as soon as the first rolls around, we can get it hung up and let things settle down for the month before bow season gets here.
Yep. So do you get a lot of trouble with your stands and cameras? I mean, do you get a lot of them stolen?
We have in the past, but lately it's been pretty good. You want to think most guys out in the woods are pretty good guys, that they're just doing the same thing. They're doing the same thing you are. So lately everyone's been pretty good. We haven't had too much trouble.
That's good. Cause you always get those guys that they get caught on the camera and they're like, oh, there's a camera there. And then their first initial feeling is like, oh, I probably better take that, which is sucks. I've had it happen to me.
We get guys in the camera, but nothing major. Nobody's taking them. I had a guy this year. Unfortunately, I was telling you about the logging operation that started. It literally started 5 days before October 1st. So it was extremely frustrating. Yeah, it was tough. You get your spots picked out, you get everything hung up, and you get super excited for that first day of October. And I had a buddy who lives down by where I hunt, and he sent me a picture of the big John Deere harvesters getting dropped off. So I knew at that, man, I had to take the afternoon off and go get my equipment out of the tree because it didn't last long before they clear cut it. And like I was saying about the cameras, I had a guy on camera marking all the trees that they were cutting. So right before season, that camera was catching more activity than deer, unfortunately.
I don't know what I'd do in that instance. Justin, what would you do? I mean, you hunted public land this year, so what if you had your stuff set, ready to go, come in opening October 1st, and your tree's gone?
I guess I'd just start walking, find another tree. I don't know.
That or it becomes a rifle stand.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a great place to hunt in 2 years, but it doesn't do you any good when you walk in on it and find it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they clear cut it too. You could land an airplane back there right now. There's not much left.
That sucks.
To your point about the cameras getting stolen, I had all mine stolen this year. What I had out on public land, and I mean, I thought I was thinking outside the box, but apparently not. If anybody listens to this and you're that guy or gal, go ahead and take the card, but leave me the freaking camera.
Yeah,
I can deal with losing the SD card, but just leave the camera.
I agree 100%, man.
Definitely.
Don't be
like
that guy.
Exactly. And like I said, in the UP, we got a lot of good-hearted, hardworking people, and they understand. You know, we've had it happen in the past, but like I said, nothing lately.
Yeah. You know, with that clear cut coming through, I mean, that obviously changed your game plan a little bit. How did you and your dad, you know, come up with a new game plan within, 5 days or so and figure out where you wanted to go? Because, you know, I do want to kind of tee up that the last 3 years or so, you and your dad have had a horseshoe in your back pocket, to be honest with you. I mean, you guys have got on some really good deer and been able to get them on the ground. So how did that change your guys' game plan?
Definitely. You know, fortunately, it didn't have to change too much. I give him a lot of credit because he's the one that does most of the scouting. You know, I'm with him, but he knows that land like the back of his hand. You know, he's been down at the camp for 35 years or so, and you know, he knows it better than anybody. So he always seems to have backup plans for us. And yeah, like you said, the last couple of years have been pretty hot. The stand I killed my buck at this year, it was an old spot that he had hunted back when I was just a kid. I remember going back there with him to, you know, help him get it ready. And he kind of let it go for a few years because it was a little bit further from the camp, you know. But anyway, in 2016, you know, it was a spot we kind of revisited and had really good luck that first year back. My dad killed a really nice 10-point buck on November 1st, I believe it was. So yeah, that first week in November, you know, a buck that he never really had on camera. And then 12 days later, you know, everyone was in camp getting ready for rifle season. I think it was like the Friday before season, and I ended up killing a 9-pointer out of the same tree. So that was a pretty cool experience. That initial year going back.
So that stand, I mean, obviously you've killed some good deer out of that stand, both of you have. What makes that spot so good? Is it just a natural corridor? Is it on some food, or is it right next to bedding? Like, what makes it primo year in and year out?
Yeah, it kind of checks the boxes, you know, all the above. It's definitely a corridor where deer can travel, but it's got everything. There's a creek there, a lot of cedar swamps, a lot of bedding, a lot of cover. The deer just feel safe, you know, and it's away from the main road. It's one of those spots. It's a rare spot. Like, it's far away from everybody else, but I say it's easy to get to, meaning I can slip into it rather quietly and quickly, you know, but it is far away from everybody else. And the deer just don't really have to go anywhere. Like I said, the water's there, the food's there, the cover, the bedding's there. It checks all the boxes.
I gotcha. And you know, it's one of those stands that it's Old Faithful. You know, I've got one on the ground that we hunt here in Michigan, and it's kind of went cold the last couple of years, but you always know if you're going to go to the stand, you're going to see a lot of deer, and you're probably going to see a good deer, you know, a deer that is a caliber that you want to take. And whether you get a shot at him or not, that's a different story, but it's one of those ones that's like, you know, you go there, you're going to have a good night usually. It's not a very good morning spot. You can't get in there in the morning, and my farm doesn't set up for morning at all, really, and it's tough. But, you know, there's a lot of those stands, and I'm sure Justin has some as well back home or even in Iowa. You know, he found a dynamite spot this year, and I'll put the coordinates to that state land in the show notes.
Yeah.
Yes,
No.
please do that. I already had one person reach out to me on Instagram because they recognized the parking lot. And, I mean, they weren't wrong. It's just crazy that people follow stuff that closely. And
it is crazy, man, how people
what's going
will.
on.
Yeah, and especially because, you know, we film all of our stuff too, so it's like people will slow clips down to figure out, like, you know, okay, they went by that hotel when they were driving. It's like, it's got to be close, you know, and it's like crazy what they do, and just to get a leg up, you know, and it's like, man, you know, what are you doing? Come on, you know?
Yeah, and it's not, I mean, it doesn't bother me. I mean, it turned into a pretty good conversation with the guy. I mean, he's actually from Michigan, and he's going to draw a tag this year. So, I mean, I'm happy to help anybody out. I mean, it's not a secret, and it's just as much theirs as it is mine, I guess, if it's their time to hunt, so whatever. And we ended up trading stories and trail camera pictures, and I mean, it's just coincidence, really. I mean, again, I don't mind helping somebody out who is in that situation. I'm not going to fight with somebody over hunting where I hunt, especially on public ground, but it's kind of cool, though, at the same time.
Well, I know another Michigan guy that's going to pull a Iowa tag this year that, might need to piggyback off. So
Hey.
He's got 2 thumbs, and, he's sitting right in my chair with me here. It's me.
Yeah.
So, getting off track there a little bit, but, I do want to get back to Ryan here. And, like I mentioned earlier, the last 3 or 4 years, you and your dad have been, getting on really good deer. I'd really like to go back to, let's say 3 years ago when I think you said your dad kicked off the season kind of with a really good buck. Let's get into those stories a little bit and how all those unfolded and went down.
Yeah, so I kind of talked about 2016. That was the year him and I both killed bucks out of the same stand. That was a pretty special year for us. That'll probably never happen again. But 2017, that was a tough year for me. I had really good bucks. I had really good pictures of bucks in the early season, and I had really good pictures of bucks at nighttime. And I was going back and forth with this buck I was after, one of those 3.5 to 4.5 year old 10 pointers that we were talking about at the beginning. And I just couldn't get him in front of me in the daylight. And, again, I'm kind of in my hot spot that we talked about. And the only reason I'm there is because my dad felt bad for the kid. He had to, set me up with his with his good spot while I basically kicked him out and put him on another spot. So, him and I go out to the woods all the time together, pretty much every weekend, and we always checked our cameras together. And I'm telling you, I checked his camera all year long, and there was nothing to get excited about on there. And he was coming off the biggest buck of his life the previous year, so I would say his motivation wasn't great. He was kind of thinking that he had to back it up. So the season went on. I pushed really hard after that nice buck that I was after, and he was kind of, I don't want to say he was going through the motions, but he just definitely wasn't as excited as he was the year before, and the days went on. It got a little closer to rifle season, and I think it was November 14th. It was the day before the Michigan rifle opener, and him and I were sitting at camp. My uncle was running a little bit late, so it was just my dad and I was kind of getting my gear on to go hunting, and he's looking at me. He's like, really, you're going out there? I'm like, yeah, last chance before everybody moves in on my spot.
Right.
And he goes, well, it's the day before season. Day before season up in the UP is pretty much about, tradition, spending time with family, like you said, having a few beers. And needless to say, I think I shamed him into going to sit in the stand. I said, I'm going hunting. You can either sit in camp by yourself or sit in your stand by yourself. Either way, you're going to be alone, So before he left, he's like, he goes, I'm going to go, but I'm not going to be real picky tonight. I'm going to kind of get the grocery shopping done for camp, and he said, anything decent, I'm going to take them. We're going to hang them up. And I'm like, that's fine, but don't call me till after dark. So
yep.
I went out to my stand pretty early. He was running late to his, and I think 4:00 rolls around. He texts me and he's like, I got one. I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, I can only imagine what this is. And he's always been a pretty picky hunter, so I really didn't think he would shoot a small buck just to get the grocery shopping done like he said he was going to. But I had it in my head the whole time, like, he didn't have anything special. I've been checking his camera all year. There's nothing on it. So I didn't even ask what it was. I just said, all right, I'll be there after dark. Well, time goes on, a few minutes goes by, and he texts me again. And like I said, the UP has horrible service. So these messages were coming in late, coming in 2 at a time. Communication was a mess. And he texts me and goes, I found the deer. I'm staying with it. There's coyotes everywhere. And as soon as he said, I'm staying with the deer, I'm like, all right, he's obviously got something special on the ground here. And I knew that he killed a big buck the year before, and it was just killing me. I'm like, all right, what is it? And he goes, monster 10 pointer. And I'm thinking, yeah, right. I still didn't believe him. And I go, okay. Well, hang tight. I'm still not leaving. I'll be there after dark. Needless to say, I sat till dark. The buck I was after never showed up. Jump in my truck, and he was sitting about 7 miles away on the other, I was to the east of the camp. He was to the west of the camp. So he's about 7 miles away. I jump in my truck, speed over there, and I get to his stand, and it's pitch black. I can't find him anywhere. So I'm like, well, I know where his tree stand is. I'm going to be the smart one here, and I'm going to hang my headlamp next to his tree so we can find our way out of there. And I'm kind of hollering for him, but he won't give me much of a flashlight because he doesn't want me to see what he has laying on the ground. So I'm kind of sneaking through the popples are really thick. I'm basically got my hands out in front of me, and I walk up to where he's standing, and he still won't turn his flashlight on. I'm like, all right, where's the deer? And he, as proud as you could be, you lit that deer up on the ground, and I couldn't believe it. He had what we now know is a 6.5-year-old 10-point buck, tons of mass, about 19.5 inches wide on the inside spread. And something like that is a unicorn in the UP. And we were both pretty excited. That was definitely 1 year, even though I sat 350 hours in a tree and never pulled my bow off the hanger that year. That was definitely a year I'll never forget. That was one of the coolest.
That's crazy.
That was one of the coolest hunting experiences I ever had. And just watching him kind of get the buck of his lifetime.
So what was the story from him? You kind of put yourself in his shoes in the stand. What did he tell you? How this buck came in, and
Yeah.
Was he on a doe or how'd that work?
Yeah, exactly. It was really cool. I think there was a fawn in front of him before this, and the fawn was bleeding or calling, and he thought it was pretty cool. He was sitting there kind of enjoying that, and then all of a sudden a doe came in with this buck right behind him, or right behind her. And he kind of told me the story. And he said the first thing that he thought of was, well, obviously this buck is pretty far away and it's not stopping. The first thing he thought of is the guys at camp are never going to believe me when I tell them what I saw tonight, if I don't get an arrow in this thing. And somehow he got this 10-point buck in front of him at 40 yards. He killed it with a 50-pound bow.
Holy cow.
Yeah, he's over 50, so he says he's got bad shoulders, so he's got to pull a 50-pound bow. But he blew through that deer 40 yards, and what was funny about that is he didn't really tell me that originally. I was helping him drag his deer out, and I kind of like stumbled on the arrow, or I found it on my walk out. I'm like, what's this arrow doing right here? I never would have thought that he actually shot it at 40 yards. He's like, that's where I shot it. I'm like, no way. And sure enough, it passed through shot, bright red blood all over the place. It was, like I said, it was pretty cool. That was one of the coolest moments in the woods, and I didn't even pull the trigger. So it was pretty
awesome.
neat.
That's a cool story, man. And, anytime with your dad to be able to do that, I mean, I have the same way. My dad, he taught me everything coming up, and last couple years or so, he hasn't been bow hunting, but he's now getting back into it, and it's kind of went full circle. I mean, I remember growing up, he hung all my stands. He was the one buying my arrows, setting my bow up, and everything. Now I'm looking at his bow right now. I'm the one setting his bow up, getting him arrows, getting him broadheads. He calls me the other day and he goes, "What broadhead should I use this year?"
Exactly.
And I'm like, well, I'm gonna figure it out. I'll get back to you. So it's pretty cool,
exactly. Yeah,
and,
you're right. And that's exactly how it's gone for us too. And like I said, he's always been such an important part of deer hunting in general for me. And we've talked about it before. I've had opportunities to go elsewhere. My buddies have wanted me to go hunt elsewhere. And to me, deer hunting's about spending time with family, my dad and my uncle especially. And while those guys are around, there's no deer that's going to come between that. You know what I mean? That's a pretty special time of year to be out in the woods with those guys. And if I shoot a 13-inch 8-pointer, I'm excited. That's just a bonus,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. I mean, the trophy is in the eye of the beholder, and whatever you're out there doing and whatever you're trying to accomplish, I commend that for anybody out there hunting, because I'm just glad you're out there and enjoying it, and going through that and learning the woodsmanship and learning the lay of the land, and really, you're providing in a way for, putting food on the table. And that's so cool to me. And I'm just happy for anybody out there doing that.
Absolutely.
You had mentioned you sat, 350 hours or something like that in the stand and never pulled your bow back. But, this last year, you had a pretty good year. So let's jump into that a little bit and kind of take us down memory lane there.
This is actually the second deer in my life that I've ever killed in October. When I was 12, I killed my very first deer ever with a bow on October 11th. And I just got lucky that this one came in front of me on October 6th. So it was the first time ever in my hunting career, I guess, where I've killed a buck pretty early in the season. Leading up to that, like we talked about earlier, we were running trail cameras. I think I had a picture of this buck in September, around like September 19th. And then he kind of disappeared for a few days. Remember, we can't have our equipment in the woods till September 1st. And you can't put out minerals or anything until September 15th. So about that time, I got a picture of him right away. And then I lost him. I'm like, another one that kind of got away. And then just before October 1st, I got another picture of him. So I got pretty excited. I took Monday off. I'm going to hunt the opener. I'm going to sit all day long. Well, I sat all day and never saw him. And the beauty of running cameras is you can kind of see the other bucks that are available, right? So I had a couple of those small 8-pointers that we talked about. I had one walk in front of me. He was actually the first deer in front of me opening morning, and let him go, knowing that this bigger buck, this 9-pointer I was after was alive and available. So I hunted Monday, Tuesday back to work. Remember, I got Wednesday afternoon off, so I'm going to try it again. Wednesday night, it was pouring rain, thunderstorm, wind whipping, rain blowing sideways. I think I sat in my fishing gear. I didn't even sit in my camouflage. Because
you actually went hunting though.
Oh yeah. I knew that buck was there, and like I said, I don't have a lot of time during the week with my work schedule. I had to do the best. I had to make the most of the time I had. So didn't see anything Wednesday night, obviously with the weather, and Thursday and Friday roll around, and I'm thinking to myself, I know I got to work late Friday night. There's a high school soccer game I'm supposed to cover, and this buck is in my area. I need to get back out there. And I remember telling myself, should I take Friday off? And then I'm like, no, I'm going to try to do the right thing. I'm going to be there for the kids, and hopefully it pays off for me. If I just do the right thing, maybe it'll work out. So sure enough, did not take Friday off, covered the soccer game, worked late, but I was back in the tree on Saturday morning. Saturday morning was pretty slow. I think it was raining again, and it cleared up. And like I said, for the first time or the second time in my life, a shooter buck walked in front of me in October, which is pretty lucky. I think he came in around 5:30, and I remember sitting in the tree, and I could not get a deer in front of me all day. And I was sitting I probably had 2.5 hours. I remember I was home alone that day. I'm like, I'm going to get in the tree early. I had already been sitting for probably 2.5 hours, and I hadn't seen a deer. All of a sudden, this doe and fawn comes in, and it finally just calmed me down mentally a little bit. I think I was getting antsy, and shortly after that, I could see him way back in the woods. He kind of ducked his head underneath a tree. I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely him. And it felt like it took an hour, but realistically, it probably only took 5 minutes for him to work his way in front of me. But while he was doing that, he picked his nose up 2 times for sure. And I remember saying, if he picks his nose up again, I'm letting this arrow fly. And he picked it up that 3rd time and brought it back down. And he was quartering towards me a little bit, but I let one go, and luckily made a good hit on him, and didn't have too much tracking through. But it was a pretty cool experience for it to all, kind of come full circle. Like we talked about, sitting 2017 and never pulling the bull off the hanger, to have one get in front of me so early in October was pretty cool, because my buddies and I and my dad and I put a lot of hard work in throughout the year to make it happen. So that one felt pretty good.
That's really cool, man. And now explain that deer to us. What was he? 3-year-old, 4-year-old? What?
Yeah,
How big was he?
He was probably a 3.5-year-old, probably 15 inches wide on the inside spread. He just a good UP buck, you know. He was definitely. He's no monster. He's no giant buck, but he definitely stood out compared to those 2.5-year-old 8-pointers that we see that a lot of guys shoot. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. You know, like I talked about earlier, if it gets you excited, the more power to you. But this was the buck that got me excited. That was kind of the one I picked out earlier in the year, and it just for it to all come together like that.
Right.
Has been, it's been rare for me. It doesn't always work that way.
Yeah, and you had history with that deer, right? So you had him on camera all year.
I only had him. Yeah, I only had him a few times. Like I said, early in September when I first put the camera up. One more time in September, right before the opener, and then he walked in front of me that day. I killed him.
Okay.
So I knew he was there, but there was a period of time where I thought he had disappeared.
Right. You know, and Justin and I talk about it too. It's like, you know, you can't, you know, shoot, like say you're going to hold out for a 5-year-old 150-inch buck if you just don't have them, you know, so
exactly.
it's all relative in the area you're in. And, you know, like the deer that Justin is hunting out in Iowa, yeah, they might double in size than the deer we're hunting. But honestly, in my opinion, you know, a 3-year-old deer here in Michigan is a lot like a 4 or 5-year-old buck out in Iowa. And, you know, I think Justin can attest to it a little bit too, is just with the pressure, it just makes these deer grow up a lot faster than they have to, you know, and mature more.
Yes.
And that's just my opinion, but, you know, they're just a 3-year-old or even a 2-year-old around here. They can be difficult to hunt. And I think somewhat difficult in the fact that there isn't a lot of them either. You know, they're not behind every tree, and
they're not. And like we talked about earlier, kind of in our conversation when you talked about how thick the woods are. These deer are smart. They're not used to seeing people. There was this time I remember sitting in the stand, and I wiggled my toes inside my boots, and a doe heard it and took off. Like these deer, even though they're not big, they're extremely intelligent, and it really makes things tough on you.
Yeah, it really does. But that's cool, man. I mean, those stories right there. That's why I do this podcast and everything. And I want to hear, you know, stories and everything from guys from all over. And just getting you on here from the UP and everything and living that lifestyle up there. Yeah, we're from the same state, but it's almost kind of like it's different states in a way.
Very much so, yeah.
And it's just cool to hear your story and everything. And I appreciate you coming on here and doing this and taking the time. Justin, you got any closing thoughts or anything on, you know, with Ryan?
No, nothing like in particular. I mean, just another awesome story from somebody who chooses to do it the hard way. I mean, it's a little more difficult, but it's a lot more rewarding. I mean, like you said earlier, you know, the trophy is in the eye of the hunter, you know, and I mean, that came out of my mouth in the moment when I recovered my deer this year. And, you know, just, like I said, just totally unscripted and unplanned, but I mean, it's just a genuine reaction. And, you know, to recognize what that means to you and to embrace it and say, this is how I want to do it, you know, and that's your choice and more. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's kind of empowering in a way, you know, and you're not spending money on leases. You're not putting thousands into food plots. I mean, like you said, and I agree with you, there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people have the ability and the finances and the property to do that. And, you know, why wouldn't you want to? But you also have just as much of a choice to go do it on land that you pay for with everybody else who pays their taxes. And I mean, it just, like you said, the biggest thing is what it means to you to do that. It's not that you're choosing to make it harder on yourself because you want it to be, but you do it because of what it means to you. So that's
exactly. My dad and I kind of joke about it all the time. It's free land, and when you can get a nice buck off free land, it's pretty cool.
I've had this conversation like with my wife, with friends of mine, even with Aaron. Like, you know, I love whitetail hunting. I grew up on whitetails and turkeys, and you know, but I don't love it for $5,000 an acre. Not in Iowa. I mean, it's an investment. Yes, it's land. They don't make more of it. Like, say whatever you want, but I don't care if it's a 40-acre piece. Like, I don't think I would spend that much money on something just to say, this is mine, this is where I hunt, where I can go down the road 20 more miles and be on 700 acres that I also own.
Right. Yeah, and that's a great point, because how much public land is around here, even in Michigan or in Iowa. I mean, we have a ton of public land that, you know, I've been saying it before, I want to take advantage of it here too. And, you know, it's still an option if I draw an Iowa tag to go on public land, but I do have some private land I can go on as well. So it's something that I'm really thinking hard about. I just had a conversation with one of my best friends tonight. He's, you know, just applied for his Kansas tag for this year, and they're looking for some public land. All my friends are, you know, to go down there in November. They're going to hunt public land for the first time. And, you know, I can't wait to hear their stories and how it all goes down. They're going to go on a scouting trip and do that. And then, you know, go in November and try their luck on some private land or public land, and do some run and gun. So I'm excited for them and to see what they come out with and their thoughts on it. So it's just cool for me to talk to even Justin. I mean, he's hunted public land now. I've never done it. And just like you, Ryan, you know, just getting these guys on here because I've never done it and I want to do it. And it's just so intriguing to me to talk to you guys about this. And it's just fun. And I have a lot of fun doing it, you know?
Yeah, there's so many advantages to public land. We talked about the disadvantages, but the adventure behind it, the experience behind it, like you said, not knowing what's out there, and then to go capitalize on it makes it all worth it. You know, that unknown is very exciting, and it makes that trophy, whatever it may be, that much more special to you.
Yeah, the unknown is pretty crazy, not knowing what could come around the bend, you know. So that's cool, man. Well, I want to wrap this up. We're getting up to time here, and you know, I appreciate you coming on and doing this. And you know, thanks. Tell your dad thanks for letting us share his stories on here as well. Hopefully, he'll listen to this and really get some enjoyment out of it. So,
absolutely, yeah, that's what it's all about for us. So I really appreciate you having me on here and giving me a chance to talk to you guys. Great opportunity.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ryan. Appreciate it.